Hello, everyone. Here we are one day more to talk about football. Today, to talk about one of the best games this weekend, or probably the best one in terms of crazy result, crazy game. Manchester United 4, Bournemouth 4. And this time we have Tommy with us again. Last time, the last video we did about Wilfred Nancy didn't go as expected. He's not having his best moment now in Celtic Glasgow. We hope that they improve during next game. We hope that they give them time and they give him time to improve the team. But obviously, he came to the team in a bad moment, a moment that they had very important games against top teams, and it's not easy to implement. Obviously, your playing style. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on board again.
Thanks, Ruxi. Happy to be here to talk about a game with a lot of goals because I'm a great goal scorer.
Exactly like me, similar. We score once
Yeah.
a year. So yeah, let's start talking about Man United, Bournemouth. Let's go through the lineups first. In Man United, we had Lamens in goal, three centre backs, Shaw, Heaven, and Yoro. Actually, Heaven did a very good game. I was, of course, they conceded 4 goals, but anyway, I think with the ball he was very important. Then Diogo Dalot in the left, Diallo in the right. We will speak about them and about their positions because here we can see it's back five, but in many moments it was actually a back four. And when they were attacking, we saw Diallo more as a right winger and Diogo Dalot alternating between being wide and being inside. We'll talk about this, but then Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes in midfield, both score a goal. Then Mbeumo, Mason Mount in the left, I will say, and then Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha alternating a bit positions with maybe Mbeumo a bit more higher than Mateus Cunha, coming more to receive between the lines. But well, we all know both players. They are not actually typical strikers. They are players that they like to move around. And then in terms of Bournemouth, we had Petrovic on goal, Diakite and Senesi as the centre backs, Smith in the right, Trofer in the left, Tyler Adams that got injured quite early in the game, minute 5. So Alex Scott came in. Tavernier, who did also an impressive game for me. Semenyo in the right, Justin Kluivert as a number 10, Alex Jimenez, the Spanish one, in the left, and then Evan Nilsson, who also scored a beautiful goal, as a striker. So let's talk, Tommy, a bit about the average positions, because I will start with Manchester United. We can see here Luke Shaw position. We can see Heaven and we can see Yoro, no, the three centre backs. Then we can see the two midfielders. We can see Casemiro a bit more deeper, and then Bruno Fernandes a bit more higher up. We can see Dalot's position, that he alternated during the game because they play back five, then back four. We will talk about this later. But he also played during many moments inside in the half space, let's say like this, because Mason Mount at times was coming to receive wide. And then we can see Diallo more in the number 16 as a right winger, more wide, giving width to the team all the time, being dangerous in transition and being an important player for United. And then we have Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha more as two players, as I say, very mobile. They alternated positions between them, and they had a good connection. We will talk about this also later. And then if you want to comment something, Tommy, about Man United, and if you want to go through a bit about Bournemouth.
Yeah, I think you talked exactly what I thought was interesting is Diallo and Embuemo being their two outlets in behind on the last line. And then Dalot and Shaw being kind of where they started their attacks, being a little bit lower. And then one thing that I love that we'll talk about later with some other graphics is how Casemiro and Fernandes play more stacked than side by side. Those were my big insights from United. And then on Bournemouth, I think it's funny. United, maybe visually, everyone would expect them to be more back three or back five, and they probably were in more moments than usual in the back four, whereas Bournemouth was the opposite. They more 4-2-3-1, but had a lot more moments where they were more back five. And watching them last year, I think they defended a lot in a five against teams that played a back three or kind of five high, like Chelsea when Tyler Adams followed Cole Palmer a lot. And that's kind of was maybe their default way of doing things in the past, where Adams would drop into the back line and their fullbacks would be a bit more aggressive. But for me in this game, what I thought was interesting was they did the same kind of concept, but a little bit different, where the two sixes stayed more central. Yes, it would have been Tyler Adams, and it happened once where you could get the picture in the first half with him in, but then with Alex Scott as well, and then um, Adam Smith and often Jimenez being those two kind of wide guys. And I know it's a very slight change, but Adam Smith is a little bit higher than Truffert. So he was more aggressive on the right and Jimenez was more aggressive on the left. And then there were moments where they still were more back four as well, just like United was back five at moments. So that's one thing for both teams that I liked. They're a bit flexible with their shapes given the phase of the game. And then from an attacking perspective, we talked about Tavernier playing a little bit lower and more central. But then also the thing that I really liked was Semenyo being a lot more central. And he swapped wings a couple times, almost acted more of like a second forward in that half space. And I think they created a lot of chances from that moment as well, that we'll discuss.
El fútbol está cambiando y nosotros queremos que formes parte de este cambio. En The Game Changer estamos construyendo la comunidad de reflexión más completa sobre el juego. Análisis, entrevistas, mentorías y acceso directo a profesionales. Si eres entrenador, analista, jugador o un apasionado, sin dudas este es tu lugar. Únete ahora a thegamechanger.es y usa el código TGCLAB10 para tu descuento exclusivo. No te quedes fuera y únete a The Game Changer.
Sure. Let's go now with the passing connections, because I think in terms of United, it's interesting to see how many involved is Bruno Fernandes usually. I think that we are seeing him more playing more as a midfielder this season. We can discuss if that's the best position for him. I think maybe it's not his best position, but United needs him there to create, to organize, because maybe they don't have this kind of player. I think later in the second half when Mainu came in for Casemiro, they also could combine better, but I don't know, Maino is not participating so much. And yeah, we all know Bruno Fernandes and his importance maybe in the last third, or maybe playing this kind of balls for Mbeumo, for Mateus Cunha. But he has become an important player also as a midfielder, no, organizing the team with the ball. And yeah, we can see here especially how involved he was. And we can also see the connections between Mateus Cunha and Mbeumo. That I feel that also with Diallo, we can see a lot with Diallo and with Hiban, because as I say, for me it surprised me, because with the center back, how Amorim wants to use it, that at times he push more as a midfielder in deep build up. I think he was very calm with the ball. He found good solution, and we even saw him in a few times driving past some players and joining the attacks, which was great to see. So yeah, in terms of United, as I say, also the connection between Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha, I think in the first half there were 2-3 times that they connected between them, like a cross and like a last pass that where Mateus Cunha will receive between the lines, and then Mbeumo will do this movement to attack the space, as you said, Tommy. And then in terms of Bournemouth, if you want to go through, Tommy, especially we can see that much more combinations in the left side.
Yeah, so as you're looking at United, you see a lot more combinations centrally and more fluidity. I think Bournemouth, when they attack, they're much more on the flanks and more vertical, especially on the left side. And there were moments where Semenyo played on the left as well. So that's kind of why you maybe see him a bit more centrally. He played on both wings, but operated mostly on the right and inside. But one thing I love that Bournemouth have done the last 2 years really well is when one of their center backs have the ball and their wide mid or attacking mid on that side kind of roll inside under pressure and receive a straight entry ball. And then they have the 10 inside and then the fullback getting around. And so that's for me one of their most common patterns of how they progress the ball, and something that they created a few chances early on from in this game. And that would be kind of my biggest insight, is a lot less central combinations, more play on the outsides, and more verticality than United. And then the other thing I'd add is you can see it a little bit, and because they swapped wings, Jimenez and Semenyo at points, that it didn't become kind of a full trend in it. But you can see Smith is a little bit lower, Truffert is more inside, so it gives you a bit of that kind of back four, back five hybrid shape, with Jimenez being a little bit higher and wider, that we discussed earlier. But yeah, for me, the biggest insight was the bypassing the sixes and playing straight into the attacking mids or wide mids, from entry passes from the center backs being Bournemouth's best way to create chances from established possession. They were very effective in transition as well.
Yeah, we can see the differences between Alex Jimenez and Semenyo. So they both, when they attack, they play maybe in the wing, no? But when it's time to defend, obviously Alex Jimenez has this energy to drop back and to become a back five at times. And obviously maybe Semenyo is more dangerous in offensive position. So that's why Iraola wants to keep him there and avoid big defensive efforts for him. But we will see that that's something United exploited. So let's go a bit about the stats from the game, because I was watching the game again today, and the commentator was saying that the expected goals from Manchester United in the first half, 2.28, was the highest in the last 2 seasons, in the last 2 years for United. What it means that actually the first half for United, they were much better than Bournemouth, in my opinion. It's true that they had this mistake in the first goal that then fast transition and Semenyo finished it well. But in general, we can see in the expected goal dynamics, Man United in the first half, they had clear chances. Obviously, the first goal that we will talk later. But in general, I think United was better in the first half. Then the second half, I think the game became a bit more crazy with many goals. And yeah, I think the first 15-20 minutes in the second half, they were for Bournemouth. But then when they scored, United started to dominate more. In the minute 70, some changes. Maino came in, so they changed the game. We will also talk about this later. But yeah, if we check the ball possession, I think it was very similar in both halves. I think United had a bit more control with the ball, but Bournemouth was confident in transition, so it was okay for them. And then something that I wanted to highlight too is also the pressing intensity. No, it's we know Bournemouth, they are known by for being a team that likes to press high. But if we see the first half, the PPDA, so the passes permitted per defensive action, is very, very low, 5.6 for United and 8.7 for Bournemouth. I think both teams in the first half especially, they press high and they succeed with this high press at times. No, there were times that I think United was a bit better in terms of build-up in the first half. They found some solutions, and Bournemouth, they struggle a bit in this build-up. The midfielders, they lost a few balls, and the centre-back also, Diakite, also struggle a bit, and Manchester United could create some dangerous transitions from that. But yeah, overall, the pressing intensity from both teams is quite high. Something else to add to these stats, Tommy?
Yeah, so I think for me, the big two that I took away, or three, was Bournemouth was a lot more clinical with their chances. They didn't create the same volume as United, and the 2 goals kind of right after half completely changed the game, and I think allowed United to be more dominant. At the same time, Bournemouth, as you can see from the pressing intensity, PPDA, and average formation line in meters, for me, those were 2 great indicators of after Bournemouth scored, they were very comfortable, even though they're a very high pressing team, of just dropping their line. They dropped their line of confrontation, but then also try to limit the spacing behind. And I thought, yes, United made some changes, and maybe people look at it from United's perspective, but I also thought it was Bournemouth's kind of early, maybe psychological or tactical shift to be more defensive. that also gave United a lot more control.
Okay, so Tommy, let's start going through a bit about to see some photos from the game. Let's discuss first about Bournemouth high press and United's deep build up, because we can see that during the first minutes, I think Bournemouth gave United a bit more of space that is not common to see Bournemouth, not high pressing and not going very aggressive. But in the first minutes, I think they were maybe testing them a bit, and we could see how United a few times they were able to find Casemiro behind Kluivert, because Kluivert had to cover Heaven, the midfield, the center back that we know that Amorim likes to push a bit higher. So Kluivert here had the issue that didn't know if to follow Heaven or to stay with Casemiro. And then Evanilson was the one from Shaw, the left centre back, stepping to the goalkeeper. After this, it happened a couple of times during the first minutes. I think Bournemouth started to be more aggressive. We can see now minute 11 how they basically Kluivert stayed with Heaven, and then Tavernier, which we know it's a bit more the number 8 or one of the midfielders of Bournemouth, steps to Casemiro, and then Alex Scott steps to Bruno Fernandes. We can see the same. Evanilson, Tommy stepping from Shaw to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think maybe the first one we saw was like right after Alex Scott came in, and he's still trying to understand his roles and responsibilities. Like 6 minutes in, he got subbed in at the 5th minute, and then if you go to the next one, I think this was their ideal situation, where it almost looks more like a back 5, 2 6s, Kluivert as a 10, and then Semenyo and Evanilson, the front 2, but from wider positions. And Evanilson, like you said, responsible for the goalie and Shaw. And then there were still moments where United was successful, where they're able to find Shaw. And then from that, if you go to the next one, this is where I think United caused some trouble, but also Bournemouth was able to turn them over and create moments of success in transition. To our point, talking about Semenyo earlier, yes, he's more of a front 2, which if they win the ball in these areas, he's more of a second striker, central outlet, where he was very dangerous. But at the same time, I thought some of United's best deep build-up moments came from having Dalot a bit lower on his right foot, playing inside on a diagonal angle to Fernandes, who then could either, I think this one he may have dummied, and there's other ones where he was able to turn and then find an Mbeumo and Diallo on the last line looking to get in behind. So these, for me, these were some of their best moves. And as you can see, the pressure on the ball on Dalot is Smith, and you have Diakite wide, and this is Adams in this moment, still in the game, as the 2 6s with Tavernier, and Jimenez more of a wing back. So it gave you that back 5 shape that I was talking about, that Bournemouth tried to press from.
Yeah, I have been talking a lot in my Twitter account about the wrong-footed fullbacks being like a solution for deep build-ups, and I think we saw it a lot with Cancelo when he played for Manchester City, that they use him in deep build-up in this kind of situation where he can receive and he can have these diagonal angles that we spoke about, because usually if it's a natural footed player receiving, he will feel the pressure right away, and many times you are only able to clear the ball away. But in this kind of situations, you can make the touch in and you can find solution. And I have seen, we all know that United had been struggling to play, to progress through midfield, and I think with Dalot, they have found during Amorim time in United, they have found a solution to progress many times through him, through this kind of situations where he connects with Bruno. And as we spoke before, Tommy, Bruno playing in a higher position than Casemiro, because in this double pivot position, we have Heaven that steps and push up. So United were able to progress through this situation with Dalot. But also, we can see in this kind of situation how they found an advantage with Dalot, but also with Shaw joining the attacks, no, and creating problems for Semenyo, who had to follow and run back. That is something that probably he doesn't like.
Yeah, I like this one a lot from United, and I think it started more from kind of the run of play build-ups, where maybe the first action where they tried to get it on the right side didn't work, and they had to circulate the ball back to the left. And at that moment, it seemed like whenever Casemiro, Heaven, or Euro got it, and they're looking to switch the ball to the left side, Shaw would take off and run forward from an inside position, and then at the same time, Dalot would come lower into a kind of a fullback and a back four, and then Mount would start from inside and spin outside. And I think this caused a lot of issues for Bournemouth. One, because Semenyo had to track into his last line. The fullback had to step really high from Bournemouth Smith, and then a center back has to chase a more kind of tricky, kind of smaller player into the channel. And so that requires a lot of shifting from them. And at the same time, let's say they did that really, really well, and they're following everyone, then it opens up Dalot's right foot to Cunha or Fernandez. And as you can see here, let's say Semenyo's late, but Scott is really effective in following Shaw in transition. Look how open Cunha and Fernandez are to finish the attack with Mbeumo and Diallo. So I think it was a really smart idea from United, and hard to track. And worst case, it leaves Semenyo in a center back position. You're like, we take one of their best players in transition away from our goal, and it can be that simple. But then I also thought there were some really interesting attacking dynamics that could have come from that moment a lot more. And it happened once or twice. Sometimes it was a direct ball into Shaw, who's beating Semenyo, or some of these inside passes. But I really like this one.
Yeah, forcing talented players or very offensive players to run back and to track this kind of runs. It's not easy for them to do it, and it's something that I have seen a lot during this last season. And last year I saw it in Inter de Milan against Barcelona, with Lamine Yamal and Bastoni. So an idea Simone Inzaghi had, that we could see that Lamine Yamal was stepping to press Bastoni, and Bastoni was passing wide many times to Di Marco and then making the run. And this created a lot of problems to Barca, because Yamal was not tracking back Bastoni. So then they had a numerical advantage all the time, and then maybe Frenkie de Jong started following Bastoni, and this, as you say, opened up passing lines inside to other players. So I think this is a great idea, and against aggressive pressing situations, to force the opposition more talented players that they don't like to track back to do this kind of runs. And yeah, I think United did it well, and at the same time that Dalot is wrong-footed, it helped them a lot. And let's watch now a bit the problems United had defensively, because they defended, as we said, in many situations more in a 4-4-2. But with Diallo pushing higher and Yoro more as a right fullback. But we can see here how Bruno Fernandes tends to be very man-oriented when he's defending, and that opens up space between the lines, which maybe wingers should be more closing in spaces, but it's something we don't see a lot in United. So this opens up spaces between the lines that sometimes they force the centre-backs to step out. And yeah, when you have a back five, it's easier, but when you have a back four, it's a bit more difficult. And I think this created problems to United. I think the United's mid-block, low block still, I think that in the high press, they were quite good. They recovered quite many balls. And obviously, Bournemouth is a team that plays direct quite often. But still, I think in the first half, they were good in the high press. But in terms of the mid-low block, I think they still need a lot to improve. And I have another situation, Tommy, that I saw during the game, that is that you could see Casemiro stepping wide, and then Bruno Fernandes also in a similar zone. So Casemiro tends to go to the wide channel and move wide, and this creates a lot of times space between the lines, also because Bournemouth front players, they like to attack the space in behind. So this created, in some situations like here, that Trofer plays a good pass to Evan Nilsson, and this ends up in a chance for Bournemouth. So yeah, what are your thoughts about United's United mid-block, low-block defending situations?
Yeah, I think from the first clip you just showed, their united shape with maybe Casemiro more connected to the back line, it allows them to protect centrally, and maybe they're not as aggressive, and that's one of the things that a lot of people have talked about is United being aggressive from a mid block situation with a back five. And I think because Fernandez is more man oriented or more attacking minded, Casemiro then takes on the responsibility of let me sit in front of the back line, whether it's a back four or back five, and protect that space. The issue then becomes when they're not coordinated together, like you showed in the second clip, and Fernandez is caught high, and then Casemiro has to help out in wide areas. Then there's no one protecting the center of the pitch because both kind of wing backs or attacking mids have been aggressive in the press. So I think in some ways, whether it's a back four or back five, United's probably best with Casemiro sitting centrally and allowing people around him, whether it's an outside center back in a back three or the wing back or the wide mid, being really aggressive, stepping, and it again protects the most valuable area of the field. But yeah, I agree that one, this is not an ideal situation, regardless of your players, that both of your sixes are outside and above the ball carrier. But given their qualities of them specifically as a midfield pair, but also the people around them, I think United can be still very aggressive in the mid block as long as Casemiro sits centrally and then the people around him are able to step forward and backwards.
But you agree with me that in the high press they were better?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely better until it went direct and then Bournemouth won the direct passes and scored.
Yeah, that's the issue. But if we talk, we already go a bit to the second half. I think the United, we remember they were leading, but they came in the second half, and then Bournemouth scored two very fast goals, and then they were up 2-3, and then they started to drop a bit more, give United a bit more time on the ball, and I think in the minute 70. They made some changes. Maino came in, or around minute 70. Maino came in for Casemiro. I think that gave them a bit more control with the ball, a bit better combinations inside. And at the same time, they went to back four. Lisandro Martinez came in for Lloro. They started, Dalot went to the right back position, and they started to play more of a 4-2-3-1, or where Bruno Fernandes and Maino were the two midfielders, Given and Lisandro were the two centre backs, Dalot in the right back position, Diallo as a right winger, then Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha more between the lines, and Sesko came in also as a striker. And then in the left, Luke Shaw was very offensive. He pushed higher up because Mateus Cunha was moving inside, and in the right, Diallo was more as a right winger, so Dalot was a bit lower. But yeah, we started to see a better United. I think they started to control, and also the two goals came very fast. One from Bruno Fernandes, one great free kick, and then the second one that was a throw-in, Tommy, a very fast throw-in for after the goal, no, that United through some rebounds, but Mbeumo, Sesko then, and then Mateus Cunha, and ends up in the 4-3 for United.
Yeah, I think this was very interesting. And the point I talked about after minute 70, Bournemouth dropping their line and becoming a bit more passive. I think one was the state of the game, but also the players that United had on the field. This is a higher line of confrontation that I was talking about, but the same concept happens where it's a front three from Bournemouth, and then one of their center midfielders has to step into that front line. And then it almost looks more like of a 5-1-4, and one of their center backs, Diakite, in this example, has to be very aggressive stepping in. And I think this caused a lot of issues for Bournemouth because Fernandez is receiving in the first line, or Manu is receiving in the first line, and they both like to be on the ball and organize attacks. And so it drew Bournemouth a little bit higher or out of their shape, whether they were in a low block or a high block. And I think opened up spaces centrally for United to combine and create attacks or just have more control of the game higher up the field. So I really like this dynamic between Fernandez and Manu, and same kind of concept with Casemiro and Fernandez, where they're a bit more stacked. But now they have someone who's in front of their Bournemouth shape who then can pass or organize the attack. So I thought this was a really good shift from Amorim and United as the game went on.
And yeah, to finish, Tommy, with the last action or the last goal from Bournemouth that ended up the game with this 4-4 for both teams, 1 point for both teams. So we can see, I was saying that the goal for United came from a throw-in. This is another situation that comes from an offensive throw-in from United, but Bournemouth are able to win one of these duels in these kind of tight spaces. And then we can see here, obviously we don't blame Diallo because his game also was amazing, and actually in this situation he tracks back well, but at the same time it's in a situation that is not quite clear that you are going to be able to progress the ball to the opposite side. I think it was quite open in this situation, so Bournemouth ends up getting the ball and playing, I think it's Alex Jimenez there that ends up playing a key pass to Krupi, who finished well. As we say, Bournemouth was clinical. They have good players in front, and the feeling was that any transition they got in the front foot and they were able to face forward, Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, they were top players. Even Justin Kluivert, they can do this because they are players that they are used to attack the space in behind. And that's how Bournemouth scored the 4-4. I think this was a bit, I don't know, if in this kind of, with this kind of result in minute 83, I think it's something you can avoid, this kind of goal, but staying a bit more protected. And I think Diallo still has the pace to attack the space in behind. As I say, I think Diallo did a very good game in general overall, but in this situation, I think he could close there the inner spaces. What are your thoughts on this situation, Tommy?
I totally agree that he should be maybe a bit lower or goal side in this moment. And it's, I think, less to do with kind of the tactical part of it, more maybe just the psychological. Like he's thinking, oh, this is an offensive throw in, I'm going to go score a goal. And it's like they're not the only team that has done this recently. This happens all the time. And for me, being an Arsenal supporter, the goal they gave up against Aston Villa was very similar, where Arsenal's front three, who were clearly told when they came to the field, go win the game. And you have Madueke, Gyökeres, and Martinelli. The ball's bouncing even closer to Arsenal's goal, and they're already looking to run the other way. So with players like that, yes, they have the pace to get there, but I think it's very interesting that their mindset is before we even have won the ball, we're already looking to exploit the space in behind. Or maybe if you wait until this ball settles and lands at Fernandez's feet, then to run in behind. And Fernandez has the vision where he can take one touch and play this in behind if you start level with Jimenez. But I think it's interesting as the game went on in the Arsenal example and this one, that you're already thinking before you've got like secure possession of the ball, let's run in behind, or let's be high so we can run in behind.
Mm-hmm. So, well, the game ended 4-4, 1 point for each one. And talking to finish a bit about both teams, I still feel that what Iraola is doing in Bournemouth is impressive. They have lost a lot of important players, even the two centre-backs. The last season, Zabarny and Huijsen were very important. They lost also, I would say, the Liverpool left-back, Milos Kerkez. And actually, they're still there competing. They started very, very, very well the season. Now they lost a few games, but still they are there. And it's impressive what Iraola is doing this season. In terms of possession, they are a bit better. Last season they were not. They were, I think, very low in terms of possession. So, and when you could see that their first intention was always to play direct and try to create this kind of high press situations. No, I think this season they are trying to play a bit more, let's say like this. And we could see it even in the first half against United that they struggle a bit in these build-up situations. They lost a few balls. They have high rhythm players. If you think about Tavernier, if you think about Kluivert, about Evan Nilsson, about Semenyo, they are all players that they can attack the space in behind, that they can carry the ball, that they win duels, that they are very dynamic players. no, and maybe they can struggle in lower rhythms to keep the ball. No, they don't have maybe these players to organize the play and slow down the tempo of the game a bit. But still, impressive what they are doing. I don't think anyone likes to face them. And I wanted to ask you a bit about Bournemouth, what you have seen of them during this season, and what you expect from them this season.
Yeah, I totally agree with the high rhythm point, and I think maybe part of why they have had more possession is Hoyson and Sabarni were so good at progressing play through the thirds last year. They on the dribble or kind of vertical passes, they could get the team from their own 18 to midfield very, very quickly and very consistently. So maybe that's a byproduct of why they've had more possession is the center backs that they have or the back line that they have aren't as good at being vertical. So then they have to make more passes to open up those spaces again. So maybe that's why, or maybe it's been a shift of, hey, we can't play as chaotic as we have been or intense as we have been. Let's bring the rhythm down, and that takes time because, like we've talked about with some of the psychology or mentality of it, that's where I think it's the toughest. Like they all understand the tactics of it and how to change rhythms, but when you're doing it in the moment, it can be very tough with 60,000 fans, a 4-3 result or 3-2, and that's very tough. And so that's been my thoughts on Bournemouth evolution this year a bit, and maybe why. And then for United, I liked what I saw. Just the general concepts, maybe a bit more asymmetrical in how they build up versus how they attack. I would like to see them do more of the kind of left side lower attacks with a lot of their right-footed players being able to play final passes in behind. I think Fernandez's ability to play passes with his right foot without looking from the left side of the field in behind on the right side is fantastic. So creating more situations where him and Dalot have the ball, even under pressure, I think create a lot more advantages for United on the right side of the field that they can finish attacks with. And then I think their shift from a back five to back four, if you want to call it, in certain moments is right. And I think maybe that's just a general theme of some of the best back five teams defensively spend very little time actually in a back five. And they're pressing in a four. Who's responsible for being that person that jumps into the line of four? If that becomes super clear and they're more aggressive with that, I think that those will be welcome changes. One, for people to kind of get off Amarin's back with the back five thing, just from a kind of a narration standpoint, but also maybe it provides more pressing opportunities, more attacking opportunities. So I'll be curious to see how that one develops over time.
Yeah, at the end, the profile of players you have, maybe Dalot can do this, but asking Diallo to defend as a wing back maybe is not. So he might have tendency to be higher for transition and to press higher. No, of course there will be some moments that maybe you need to do this back five. Especially we see it, as you say, no, we see it in some moments when you have to defend very deep. Then yes, some teams use back five. Then you can do it with a midfielder, with one winger dropping. I don't know. This is up to the players you have probably and up to the manager. But yeah, I think United, they have invested a lot in players like Mbeumo, Sesko, Cunha, and obviously they are providing. I think they are creating a lot for them. Bruno Fernandes in midfield, maybe it's not his best position, but he's helping a lot the team. I think they, at some points, what I saw from Casemiro is that against high rhythm teams like Bournemouth, he suffers. And that's something maybe United needs to take in consideration for the future market. But I think still, imagine if Casemiro is playing, it means because he still is can deliver some things that other players cannot. And yeah, thinking on United, I think we are seeing now a bit more stable situation in United. As you have said during last month, a lot of talks about Ruben Amorim, his system, and if he's going to continue. At the moment, I think the project is a bit more stable, let's say like this. But we will see during next weeks how they develop. And yeah, Tommy, to finish, it was great to have you here. We will probably have you more times. Let's see next week what game we can analyze. We are also preparing. We're not going to say what team, but we are preparing one team from RDBs probably to analyze with Tommy soon. And yeah, as I always say, thank you for following us. Just don't forget to give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, to join our community where we have many coaches from all over the world, analysts, football fans, even football players. And yeah, if you want us to analyze any game this weekend, let us know in the comments. And yeah, thank you for listening us. My pleasure to have you here, Tommy. See you.
Thank you. See you guys.